They're borrowing our stage. Every
It says is fireworks are legal in Kentucky. That's fireworks, you have to go properly. Is that Middletown? Sure.
Okay.
Basically, it just says.
She couldn't get off work. Her fiance went. Oh. Hey, Marty.
Hello, Mayor.
How are you?
You can expand this. Pick it up over me.
Yes, I know that.
Short dog county.
Right here. This is the May the 8th Elizabethtown City Council work session. Mr. Bishop will lead us in prayer, please.
And we pray, Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all your blessings. We thank you for our community and those who live and work and play in it. We thank you for our city employees and special responders. And staff, be with everyone who goes about our daily living. Yes, that you be with us this evening as we do the business of the city. We ask that you lead us, guide us, and direct us in your son's name.
Amen.
Thank you, Tony. Join us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Krista Libby, you want to talk about Second Saturday in downtown?
It's nice to join you all again. We have a lot going on this month of May. So I hope you have your calendars ready. At your seats, I have the flyer for you for the second Saturday that we have coming up. And that is this week, the weekend of Mother's Day. So we've got some special things going on with that. And we're hoping to have a couple more of those downtown deals to add to it. So this is probably not the finished product. So we're still working on a couple more. But I have some vendors that's going to join us on the square, and that's Princess Attic, Woods of Wisdom, the Friends of Hardin County Animal Shelter, Uncovered Treasures, Rick's Grills on Wheels, and we've got Hardin County Relay for Life. And I want to talk a little bit about that. That's your second page that you have. They are doing Splat Out Cancer, and that's the second sheet on there. That's going to happen on North Main Street, and so that North Main Street will be closed from 11 to 6. Essentially what they're doing is filling up water balloons filled with paint, and you can throw it at the canvas or you can splat out cancer. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and Sarah helped us with that. So that should be fun and a good time for all that will. They've got an event that's coming up next month, so they're kind of doing that in charge of that. Also, naturally, I've given you a nice flyer for the barbecue festival coming up on May 27th. We're all rolling with that, the radio ads, the TV commercials, and we've got just 2 more steering committee meetings left, and the big day will be here. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Do I have any questions? Anybody? Thank you, Krista. Appreciate it. Followed by fireworks by Mark Malone.
It is that time of year, getting close to it. The mayor asked me to kind of speak to the fireworks ordinance and how it states a little bit about state law and basically our response to that. The ordinance is 133, and it basically mainly talks about public display of fireworks and how that's regulated, and that's also kind of how the state law is written. Really from a private homeowner's perspective, the only part of the ordinance that addresses that is from 11 p.m. until 8 a.m. From the nuisance side of it, that they're not allowed to be set off between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. Most of the rest of the law and our ordinance talks about the inspection of consumer tents where they come in and set a tent up to sell the fireworks, that sort of thing. And I know there have been some people concerned about it. So after discussing that with our fire prevention people, our side is more geared towards prevention. So we thought we would maybe up that side of it and let people know that vinyl siding can be ignited by fireworks. We actually had a fire last year because of that. And that the plan is to, I've doing issues and insights. I talked to Mary. We'll do that in June about fireworks safety. We're going to try to put together a trifold pamphlet to hand out to the tent vendors and let them put them in with the packages to give them, give people a little bit of a heads up. And then we're going to do it across our Facebook page and our fire prevention. We got 2 Facebook pages, one for fire, one for fire prevention. We're going to put some information out along that, along with NFPA. So basically, that's going to be our tack on anything to do with fireworks as far as the regulatory side of it. We don't, we do the inspection of the buildings, but that's about it. Any questions on the fireworks?
If the city wanted to, and I remember when we had the discussion when the state laws changed, but could we be more restrictive than the state? I mean, that's a legal question.
Yeah, exactly. That's a legal question. I'm not sure. In fact, I went back. As of 4 o'clock, I had not heard back from the state fire marshal's office, but even the fire marshal's website is scrubbed of any type of law. It basically, once again, really deals with sales and public displays of large pyrotechnics, but consumer-based stuff is basically off the books.
Can we be?
But typically, we could be more restrictive, but not less restrictive. So typically we can, and with home rule, we're supposed to be given more latitude. I mean, across the board. So I would, yes, assume that we could, make it more restrictive. That's,
Ron, if you'll remember last year, after the 4th of July, I'd received a couple of complaints and I brought it up before the council. We said that we might be interested in discussing a time limit as to how long past the 4th of July they can still continue to shoot off.
You mean on that day?
Well,
or beyond?
Days after.
I think
the complaints that I was getting was, my gosh, 4th of July is over. I mean, it was last week.
Well, I think we all got the same, yeah.
So I can't remember exactly what we discussed, but it seemed like we talked about maybe 2 weeks after the 4th or 30 days after or something. I think there's a, maybe if weather was bad and you couldn't shoot off your fireworks, you might want to save them to the next weekend or, something like that. I'm not sure, but I just wonder if you guys think that we ought to consider how long this stay in effect.
But, and I see what you're talking about, Terry, and I remember the discussion. You're talking about just after the 4th of July.
continuing on.
I'm concerned about throughout the year, is mine. Because it's wide open now. I mean,
So somebody could shoot fireworks tonight as long as they do it within those hours.
that's
Correct.
exactly right.
That's correct.
And I can't remember, Dee, but in previous years, didn't we have certain dates, Charlie?
I don't think we ever had days.
There were never restrictions. Okay.
Well, Ron, I've heard complaints in the past of just, in general shooting off fireworks in the city. People have had their property damaged, not only vinyl, you've got mulch as well.
Mhm.
And, you know, people have been concerned about finding fireworks on the roof, on their car and whatnot. And I certainly got the complaints, hey, why are we allowing fireworks to be shut off in the city? Especially within the older part of the city where the homes are real close. And that's the concern I've been hearing.
You know, the question comes back to how do you regulate that? We don't have enough police officers to regulate that.
I agree. And Marty, I agree, but I guess I'm of the opinion, maybe that's old school, but if we set designated dates or events where fireworks, then I think law enforcement then would be more prone to say, okay, we've only got 5 times during the year, as opposed to now it's 365 days a year to enforce this ordinance. You know, if I want to set fireworks off because I got a divorce, as long as I don't do it in, as long as I don't do it between those hours, I can do it.
I think his wife.
No, but in serious,
Celebrate.
seriously, I mean, does anybody else think that we're too wide open? I mean, 360.
The thing about
I've
it
only
is, though,
seen
you-
it
how can you
white in
enforce
the-
it? 'Cause
It's
when you
right
get
in
to
that
my
one.
house,
On that 4th of
you're
July
all gonna be-
And then it goes. I mean,
I know, I see, but we all had calls, and I still can't answer, you know, even from a legal, what if somebody sets a firework off, a rocket, and it comes over and it lands on my roof, you know?
Right, that's
Is
the
the
biggest
city
complaint I've
responsible?
had.
Is the
Yeah.
person that shot the rocket, we're never gonna find? My insurance company's gonna say, you know, we're not paying for it. You didn't set the rocket off. I just think we ought to be a little bit more restrictive than just, maybe that's old school.
Well, let me do a little research and give you all some ideas about what you can and cannot
I'm
do.
in favor
and
of
we'll
that.
Talk about
Yeah.
doing that. Maybe we'll put that back on work session in 2 weeks, but no.
I'd be in favor of that. Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mark.
oh gosh.
Tracy, did you have any comments about this?
No, Mark and I were just talking about this, and I think we came to the same conclusion. We need to research any kind of recent laws as they relate to any changes that are made before we can kind of make a determination where we.
Thank you.
Well, and I think it's important too. I don't think any of us are wanting us to prohibit fireworks.
No.
During, especially during.
Absolutely.
You
No,
know, a celebration like the 4th of July. It's just that, you know, the complaints we do get are usually 2 and 3 and 4 weeks beyond the 4th of
The
July.
4th of July.
And,
No, I agree.
so people can kind of look at it.
Robert? You talk about basins? Basins.
Fireworks are actually more fun. I could tell you about the time I let off the buzz bomb in my yard, but that's a story I don't want to go for. But anyway, we've had a request from a property owner, and it's a basin that we're familiar with. It's actually in Covington Ridge. That's kind of a before and after shot of the site. And the after shot was certainly after our work, and but the new homeowner, at the time we did the work, the homeowner was Mr. Ryan Donahue, and that ownership has changed. And I was approached a couple of weeks ago by the current owner, Amber Hess, in regard to our asking us if we would indeed maintain that basin after our work. We put together a kind of a indemnification agreement that should kind of govern what we need to do in the situation, and that essentially they would hold harmless, indemnify us against other things we might do at the site. But it's a pretty straightforward agreement. But I guess if we're going to embark on this, and we have the bigger picture of what we might do with other basins in the future, and we've got a draft approach for that, so we can talk more about that in the future. But for this one, maybe this might be the model to begin with. In that future agreement, I'm thinking that smaller scale basins that indeed aren't fully owned by the city, maybe we should make a decision about, like cutting grass and that weekly or, that kind of maintenance. That'll be for you all to decide. We'll offer up some ideas about that. But anyway, but in this case, I think our offer was to indeed maintain, fully upon our completion because of the extent of the improvements that we've made there. And you can see those in the photo. But I think I've rambled on enough.
I thought, one of the things that we had discussed was coming up with a protocol on these basins, but that the property would be deeded over to the city.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
At the homeowner's expense.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Are we still moving down that path?
That's an avenue, I think, in the overall plan. I should have given you copies of the overall draft version of this. But yes, that measure is in that draft. There's really two ways that you could go. And the way we've got the draft, if you want us to fully maintain, you'll deed to us the property. In this case, I think Ms. Hess really doesn't have the wherewithal to move forward to do the work to replat the property, and does not want to undergo those expenses to do that at this
But she
point in time.
wants us to maintain it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Robert, is there property?
We do not do.
FEMA, if these are in floodplains, do they have a guidance or policy that we need to follow?
If they're truly in the floodplain, Councilman, yes. I mean, we need to go through permitting and just the usual approach that we'd have in a FEMA floodplain. You'll find those, that's the case in some major basins that we have. They are indeed, as we, Freeman Lake is in a FEMA floodplain, but this is not, this is just a subdivision level basin, and, it's just not within the 100-year flood per se, even though from a practical sense, at a 100-year storm, it is going to be full of water. Yeah,
But now, this is private property.
it is.
Let me ask you a question about the basins. Would you?
Yes, sir.
Do you consider basins, even though they were built by a private contractor, they were built according to engineered specs, right? Engineered
Yes, sir.
designs.
Uh-huh.
Would you consider that as part of the city's infrastructure for drainage?
That's a good question. At some levels, yes. The stormwater system is a part of the infrastructure, and that would be a part of the stormwater system in many cases. To look at it from a utility point of view, I don't know that I would go that far, but it's important and integral to the subdivision's functioning, but not necessarily the overall city's stormwater system. I don't know.
For me, I think that I'm more in favor of us having ownership of the property.
Yes, sir.
And that the property must be deeded to us at the owner's expense. Otherwise, they're required to take care of their own basin,
Right.
which is the way it is right now.
It is.
But that's the only way then that the city should go in and take care of that, because otherwise, there's thousands of people that would like to sign one of these and give us permission to come in
Sure.
on their private property and take care of whatever issue.
The drainage.
Yes, sir.
So
Absolutely.
I think the way around that would be if they would have to offer to give us property and deed us the property. And then we would have the opportunity to accept that proposal from them and then obviously maintain it. It's our property.
It's a reasonable stance. It
Jerry,
really is.
or Councilman Chip, you're not talking about mandatory, you're talking about
They're,
that there,
this family here, they own this basin.
right,
And somewhere in their deed restrictions with their property is there's a requirement that they maintain this.
that they
basin.
maintain it.
So they're welcome to just keep things status quo like they
I
are.
agree with that.
And we should enforce that they maintain the basin. Or they are welcome to propose to us to give us free of charge that property.
And we maintain it.
And they deed it to us. And then if we accept that property, obviously we're accepting the covenants that go along with it.
But you're not saying it's mandatory that they do that, no. Yeah.
Because, you know, there's a lot of people that have private basins on their property and they do a
I
daggone
agree,
good job.
I agree.
maintaining it.
You
No,
do know that this one is the one that you authorized us to
Yes.
go on
Yes,
and clean out and fix.
yes,
All right, so now the house is sold. The
yes.
new owner
And
says,
she knew that going in about the basin
But I'm
and the maintenance
saying-
issue.
we went on this property and did that when it belonged to somebody else already.
Yes.
So you've already set a precedent in this case. But now she's bought the house, you're gonna say to her, no, 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 we're not gonna come on your property.
But I thought the developer helped in the cost to get
Well,
that.
not
redone.
yet.
That's what I,
Huh?
Well, not yet,
We're
But
hopeful.
if that's
We're
what the
hopeful.
initial agreement was.
but not
Yes.
yet. However, so,
Legally.
but, so let's say she's elderly lady and she's, there's no way I can't do that. Then you're gonna say, well, you're gonna have to hire someone to do it. And you will still inspect these, is that right? Even though
Sure.
we won't be doing it, you will be inspecting that these are done and we don't get in the same shape we got in before.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So that's what
What
you
we'll
want,
do
that's
is-
your direction.
As part of the development process, we'll require as-built drawings. The engineer will verify that that's indeed the case. It is built according to the specification.
And-
that kind
and
of
we
gets
will
us-
Make sure they keep it up.
And I'm sure, I'm fairly confident that when she was buying that property, that all was explained to her because I questioned it when I knew the sale was going down. Does she realize she's responsible for that basin? And I was told, yes, she was
And I also
aware of
talked
that.
to the realtor
Yeah.
to make sure that they all.
Yeah, you can talk until you're blue in the face, you know.
are you talking about the owner that bought the house? Then
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we just have to go back to her and say, hey, we're not gonna come on here, we're not gonna do
Yeah.
this. You are gonna do it.
Unless you deed it to the
Yes,
property, it's
yes.
private
I'm
property.
fine with that. I just
Right.
wanna make sure you all are,
Yes, ma'am, and Mayor, I'm only offering it as one possible suggestion because
Right.
we can't take care of issues on everyone's private property.
we cannot.
But I think we have, I would say to what Robert said, I believe these are part of the city's infrastructure.
Thank you.
And it is important to the operation, overall operation of the city, and we can go spot by spot and prove how that is the case because we're dealing with them. I agree with Councilman Chip here. I think we got two standards going here. I think we got a standard that we went on private property and we fixed this one. We got another standard says we're not gonna go on your property, Mr. Travis Todd Travis here, because your private property's right there and we don't go on private property to do it. But, so we got two different standards going here. And we got our ox and a what, Charlie? Yeah, there you go. So.
Well, the ditch isn't gonna work very well with the ox there. I can tell you. that.
It'll clog it up.
Yeah.
That's probably what got this basin clogged up.
And as we go back to
Yes.
this one though, my memory is that the developer was paying for the repair.
Yes,
Yes,
that's what we,
I just
that's
said,
what
it
we,
hasn't happened yet,
Okay.
okay?
but that was initially what.
that's what we said, yes.
That's the only reason we agreed to do that.
That's right.
Plus the fact that it was causing so much flooding in other
Yeah,
places.
that neighborhood,
Exactly.
yeah.
Right now, though, we're looking at the maintenance of it.
So, but again, if a developer will pay us, or if a homeowner will pay us, will we go on the private property and fix the drainage issue?
Well, I'm not sure we can correct what we've
If they'll
done.
pay for it,
Pay
I mean,
for it.
that
If they pay
offer's been
for it.
made on a lot of things.
Right.
Or if they pay for the materials, we've done labor before.
Well, to me, that's the reason why I asked the question, Mr. Butch. I view a retention basin that was engineered specifically for stormwater control to be different than a lot of the problems we hear. I mean, that's the reason why it was designed. That was the reason why it was designed to certain specifications. That's the reason why it was built. It was for one reason only.
Right.
Not convenience, not to pour a driveway over top of it. It for one reason only, stormwater management and control, and to prevent flooding.
Exactly.
And so that's the reason why I asked the question about the fact that I would consider this pretty valuable infrastructure, regardless of who built it, for the city.
Well, it's still a utility to me, sense. I mean, that's why I keep asking about MSD.
Sure.
Because at some point, this is all utility. It does become a part of us.
But I don't believe I'm in favor of going and maintaining and mowing and trimming and doing all the things that you have to do on someone else's property, even though they do give us clearance to do it. I just don't think that's our responsibility.
But we're not doing that now.
No, we don't. That's right, but that's what this is saying that we should do.
Well, I thought that this was just for this one.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I don't think we should do this one.
Oh.
No, that's for establishing a
Policy.
This identification.
But what's brought it on is this one.
Yeah.
Correct. And I'll ask the city attorney to please correct me, but I believe that cities have the discretion of making decisions about how far they extend their resources. And that the path we were talking about going down, establishing criteria for certain portions of the drainage system to be designed, built, maintained, whatever, with the appropriate as far as that discretion. So that you can set it up in a way that says, we're going to do this, and we're not going to do this, even though they may seem to have similarities. But that's a decision that you all have to make as far as how you're using that
Well,
discretion.
I think that if that's the case, then if we have the discretion to say, yes, you can still own this basin, and we will come in and take care of the maintenance, I think that policy should be very narrowly defined as a basin policy, not just a personal property policy. It's got to be, I would rather see that narrowly defined as retention and detention basins. Policies. It's a basin, yes, that's right. Not a front yard or a backyard or a ditch that's been, caved in or something along those lines.
I understand.
But I agree with what you're saying, but I think you have to be careful what Councilman Fulkerson is saying. And define that clearly so that you don't open.
And that's the reason why I would want it narrowly defined.
Because that discretion is going to get us in trouble.
Right.
It'll upset some people.
Charlie, let me just put you on the spot. Would you be in favor of the city making it mandatory before we went in that the city, they give us that property, that basin?
Safer
Policy, see,
Yeah.
I think that would clear up a lot.
Yes, I think so too.
I think that would take care of the issues.
Very few people are going to give you ownership
That's right.
of something that's in their front yard.
Because otherwise, you have the policy that you're going to inspect and require maintenance of the owner, because as you say, it's in their deed restriction on the plan that the owner will do that. So you have that. Now that's a little bit difficult than just going in and fixing it and getting a policy signed with an identification agreement. I mentioned that so I could see if I can pronounce it. So.
Showing off, Charlie.
So getting that compliance with the maintenance is going to be more difficult, obviously, than just going and doing that. But still an appropriate policy, I think, if you have the alternative.
Ownership.
Then we can assume responsibility.
I think we're headed in the right direction if we.
Do we have more basins
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
privately owned versus developer owned? What would you say that percentage is?
I think so.
Yeah, I think the great majority are privately owned that are in
Privately
exist,
owned?
yeah.
Okay, they've been
The-
deeded over after
The developer-owned category is only going to be mostly the subdivisions that are in transition. They're being currently constructed and maybe still, have some ownership of lots. And those will be the developer-owned ones. Now, and the path for them will be, is that going to be a city basin in the future, while you own it, and can you configure it such that it can be done? Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. And I'll relate to the property owner, as you all think, I guess, when you all tell me what you want to do, we'll correspond to the property owner. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And you all remember a few weeks ago when Desiree did and she told you how many were private and how many
Yes,
were?
yes.
There were
Several.
thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was shocked. I didn't.
So this is something you all gonna have.
Yeah, because we're supposed to be getting a list of them, aren't we? And where they're
Didn't
located.
she
It's
pass
like
everybody
100.
out? I've got one. That, yeah, she gave everybody. Yeah.
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 List of the basins and where they are.
Yeah.
I didn't get
Yeah, I didn't get
one. I
one.
didn't get one either.
I didn't
Oh,
get
come on,
Did
you
you get
guys.
I think those two were gone.
Oh.
He
okay.
didn't, Bill didn't get one
one.
either.
I didn't get one.
Yeah.
Ron didn't get one.
I've got mine, you got yours, so
Tony
that's
was like
enough, okay?
Yeah, all right, but it's like
Okay,
100.
thank you.
And the dog ate your homework too.
Okay, right.
Okay, sure.
There you go. Ever heard that one, Bill?
Yeah. Okay, Don Hill.
Mayor, Council.
Good afternoon.
Let's see, last week, provided you with a memo on State Street and Deepwood Drive medians. And how do I get this to come up, Mike? Right now, we're in the process of doing drainage improvements and street improvements. And what I mean by street improvements is paving. And a couple of weeks ago, we had an inquiry or a request to look at the possibility of removing and paving over the existing medians that exist on State Street and Deepwood Drive. So I'll try to be as brief as I can. First off, I'd like to start off with what purposes that medians serve, and then also kind of tie it into the end, which was the recommendation that we made at the end of the memo, and then we'll take questions and get some feedback from the council. So basically, if you look at medians, and they serve four main purposes, and one is if you're in a high traffic volume area, they can serve as a safe place for pedestrians crossing the street where you have a wide width of pavement. So, if you got someone crossing the street, they can hit the median, traffic's coming, then they can wait until the traffic goes through and then they can cross. That's high traffic volume areas. Obviously, these are local streets. So in local streets, one purpose that they serve is beautification, which if they're maintained, they're beautiful. And I'm sure that was one of the reasons why they put these two in at the time the subdivision was developed. The other thing is lane channelization. So what you've got is you've got traffic on Woodland Drive. If they're entering the subdivision, they'll kick out and they'll go, which kind of helps avoid any possibility of collision here at the intersection. Same thing down at State Street. So you got lane channelization and traffic coming out. So it kind of keeps them to the right. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, and was the main reason what the recommendation was based on, is traffic calming. Okay. So on Deepwood Drive, you have a 17-foot wide street or lane. You have 15-foot wide or 14-foot wide median. Then you've got a 20-foot wide lane. Over on State Street, you've got 16 feet. Then you've got a 10-foot wide median. Then you've got an 18-foot wide lane. So traffic calming. And that's what we really looked at when we wanted to make the recommendation to you all in the memo. So we went ahead, we polled the residents that live in the vicinity of each median. Now on State Street, it was split. You had some that wanted to keep them. You had some that wanted them removed. And then you had one that said, I have no opinion, doesn't matter to me. The people that maintain it, they desire for it to remain. I'm talking State Street. On Deepwood Drive, the residents that we could make contact with, the consensus was to remove it. Now, there was one lady that maintains it. She said she's maintained it for 10 years. And she said, one is if we could prevent people from parking on this median on Deepwood Drive to keep from rutting it up and then causing her problems when she's trying to maintain it, she is not opposed to maintaining it if it remains. Okay. So actually, one person that we know where the vehicles originate from, that where they're parking, that person said, remove it and fill it in. So that was kind of, I thought that was kind of unique because it's taking away a parking area for them. So anyway, so what we come up with is, one is to leave State Street as it is. few years ago, we had some concerns about parking on the street, and you can see the cars parking on there. So we went in and we widened that side, that lane, and reduced the width of the median. So what we're looking at on Deepwood, so our recommendation is to leave that median as it is. If we come down to Deepwood, this is the more narrow lane, is the side where we have the people parking on the streets, and it's at times using the median, which I will say that we have been over there to talk to them and ask them not to do that. And I think we've had some success, even though we have had some instances where people would drive by and say, hey, I saw a car parked there. But it's not like it was. I have at times before we went over and talked to them, they were lying down it. They were lined, not all the way down, because this is a 271-foot long median. The one at State Street is 250 feet long. So anyway, so a recommendation too is to widen or reduce the width of this median on this side, which would balance the lane. So we'll take 4 feet off of this, which would reduce it, balance the lanes. And then also we can do some regrading to try to, and signage to try to deter or discourage people from parking in that median. So.
Don,
Any
does the
questions?
city actually own the median? Do we own the median?
It's in the right of way. Yes.
Don, the only comments that I have ever heard about those medians were complaints.
Okay.
They were from residents further back in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
I still receive those complaints on a almost weekly basis.
And-
Because I go to church with a couple of them,
Right.
things like that. Here's what the complaints are.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you.
The complaints are that some people park on the streets, and when they park on the streets, if they're parking on the side of the street, somebody, and these people are trying to get out on Woodland, it's a tight fit between the median and where that car is parked on the street.
So this is on Deepwood.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, you could possibly correct that somewhat by narrowing the median, which gives
Correct.
more room.
Yes.
The other complaint I have is that they're ugly because they're not maintained properly. The other complaint is that people park on them all the time, and then that reduces visibility again.
Mhm.
So those are the complaints that I have.
Okay.
The other thing that I'm worried about with the medians is that, somebody's been taking care of one of them for 10 years, and that's fine, as long as that person, that man or woman lives there, and they want to take care of them for another 10 years. But what happens when their mower breaks? It reminds me of the little old church cemeteries, that as long as the guy across the street is still living and his mower's working, he mows the cemetery. And then when he quits mowing the cemetery, the church got a real big problem because they haven't prepared for it.
True.
And we hear about a lot of neighborhoods that their neighborhood associations are now defunct. They don't have any funds, and they're wanting the city to come in and mow their medians, and we don't mow medians. So don't know if that matches this situation the same, because that is on an easement that we own.
Well, I mean, at this time, they are being maintained. Now, as I can say, I have seen cars parked here. I have not seen cars park on that one. Both of them, I mean, even going out there today, I took some pictures. They're being maintained. If it was your desire to, or your decision to fill these, I think we need to talk about what's going to happen, because it's going to change the characteristic not only of the street, but of the intersections at Woodland.
Well, you got to upset the majority of the residents too, who said
Exactly.
they want to keep the,
And you think this is ugly.
Yeah.
You wait until that
Mhm.
is filled in.
majority of the residents said they want to keep them. I'm saying that if you,
Well, on State Street, but on Deepwood, the consensus was to remove them.
Yeah, but aren't the ones that wanted to remove it the ones that are parking and tearing it up to begin with?
There are some,
Isn't that
yes.
the problem?
Yes,
You
that
know,
was one of them.
You're right, they maintain this and it's beautiful. Over here, it could be beautiful as well, but the people are parking on it, they keep tearing it up. And if we just keep people off that, and then maybe maybe plant some bushes in the median there, that would keep them off.
Mhm.
The other question is, parking on the street, is that within the ordinance, or are they parking illegally on the side of the street?
No, parking is allowed on that street.
Okay. So you're
Not
suggesting.
in the median, but on the street.
All right, so you're suggesting take about 4 feet off the median, keep it, fix it up, so we can widen that sign so people can park on the side of
Correct.
the street.
Correct. That way, when vehicles do park on, because right now there's one vehicle today parked on the street, and because they don't have the width, they're parking on the sidewalk.
Hey, Don,
Yes, sir.
if the the residents there quit volunteering to maintain, would it be our responsibility to maintain?
Somebody would have to, yes.
Well, with the easement right, does it make it our responsibility?
Well, we mow, I can tell you this, we mow a tremendous amount of right of way. We mow state right of way, we mow city right of way. And we mow the medians on Dixie and Mulberry. So, I don't want to go too much out on the limb. 250 and 271 feet would not make that big a difference. Now, again, you have to be careful is you don't want to set a precedent, because then you got other people that have medians that their neighborhood associations go defunct, and then they're going to say, why aren't you mowing mine? These two right here are a little different because it's grass. Okay, these are grass. These are just, they're flush with the street. They're grass, very little effort. A couple of swipes of the mower and you're okay. Now you get into other medians that are raised, and then they have landscaping, they have mulch, trees, all that. And hey, we trim trees in right of way also.
Now, Foxborough has a couple of medians as well, correct? It's not on, is it Red Bud Road, or no, it's not Red Bud Road?
Foxfire, now you're talking about
Foxborough State.
Foxborough. They do on, is it Spruce?
It's Spruce.
They maintain those. We do not maintain those.
Not if we go along with what I think you recommended, making the median narrower and widening the road on the north side over there on Deepwood I'm talking about. I don't think that a car could even park on there then, if that's one of our problems.
Well, no, it will still be about 10, 11 feet wide.
Yeah, but it makes it much more difficult.
It makes it more difficult. Right, right.
But we can erect a sign that says no parking on the median.
Yes.
Police then have the right to issue tickets.
There you go.
And after a couple of tickets,
Correct.
surely they'll quit.
Correct.
And while we're at it, could we, as far as beautification goes, could we plant some shrubbery or whatever there, like the one on the other street?
And those shrubs were planted by the homeowners over there. Yes, yes. I mean, the recommendation basically is based on traffic calming and lane channelization. When I was thinking about it, it was a couple things that came up. One is, we, from time to time, we have residents that come in requesting traffic calming. Okay, we have traffic calming in place. So why remove it? And again, that's the whole recommendation is based on traffic calming. Because it does, and one of the people that, and I don't know if you go to church with him, Terry, he came by the office and he talked to me, and one of his concerns was with cars parking on the street was that he was afraid that children running out in between cars and running into the street. So if you take away this, you're going to have a 45 or 44 foot wide street at State. You're going to have a 51 feet wide street at Deepwood. To give you an example, Transylvania. Does anybody know where Transylvania and St. John? 46 feet wide. Okay. Robinbrook, 60 feet wide. If you look at, and if you remove them, then you got the problem or the potential of a problem or a concern of people not wanting to wait for someone turning right and go ahead and get here to make a left-hand turn. So what comes to mind is the Joan Avenue North Miles intersection, Beach Street intersections at Mulberry and at Miles. So it's very difficult. It cuts down on your sight distance. Then if you want to remove them, then you're looking at one is you probably would have to go in, stripe off medians, and then you look at the possibility of turn lanes. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, the traffic calming, it does work. Medians work. And today I was taking a picture. I was standing right here about 20 foot from the median, and there was a gentleman that was driving a car. He was wanting to turn onto Deepwood. Well, because I was standing right here, so I guess he normally, I presumed that he normally might cut that. Because I was standing right there, he went the opposite direction and went down that street. So I've got a picture of that, by the way.
When most of the cars park on the side there, they're probably, one wheel's probably up over the sidewalk in the yard.
Yes, down on this side of the street. Over here on State, when we widened that lane, we do not have that.
I like your recommendation, Don.
Yeah, I'll second that, John.
Okay.
One thing we need to think about also is when we remove this parking area here, whether by enforcement or making the modifications, we need to think about how far are we going to allow parking to the intersection, because you're liable to start having cars parked from the intersection down. So, and again, we'll see if that happens, and if it does, then we'll come back and talk to you.
Well, then, with all the cars, are these residents, or are they just having a lot of parties quite often?
Visitors.
Visitors.
Yeah. One house.
Yes, and they don't care about property values.
The street's already been milled, so if you all give me the direction, we'll go ahead and make the modifications, remove and fill them, whatever you want to do. And so we can get that street paved.
I would just say,
Okay, modification? Go with it? Okay, all right.
Hey, this
Thank you
week,
all.
don't Forget about a million.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Don. Hey, is that it? Have anything else for anybody? Okay, you ready to go?
Talk about them.
Thank you all. Thank you for coming.
I had a couple things I'm gonna let you know.